is the first of a series of Lab Studios and the Endowus team doing something we call the Endowus Empower series. So in this series, Endowus is really hoping to educate women and empower women with more information and more knowledge on how to invest their money. So we have Sin Ting today from Endowus that will teach us and educate us on all the basics of financial literacy, and I'm so excited to have you hear from her. Like I said earlier, it really changed my life and how I approach money and how I approach investing. It used to be very overwhelming, and now it feels a lot better. So thank you, Sin Ting.
Thank you, Jasmine, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. Financial literacy is something that is so core to our mission at Endowus, so I'm really excited about this Empower program. And today we're going to talk a little bit more first about, why is investing important, firstly, and what is stopping us from kind of making that first step into that journey. Mm-hmm. And we have a really small group today, so we can make it pretty interactive.
Yes,
if you have any questions or anything you want to say at any time, please feel free to just jump in. So Endowus recently published our annual Wealth Insights Report 2023. And we found that women plan to invest less than their male counterparts. Mm-hmm. And one of the main reasons they stated was because they were worried about market volatility. So some other interesting facts that we found out, about 60% of women put their money in fixed deposits compared to 40% of men. And over 60% of women were also more likely to preserve their capital by taking minimal risk compared to 47% of men. Mm-hmm. So it's not to say that women are bad at investing. In fact, the opposite is true. It's been proven that when women do invest, they actually make better investors than men. But we just happen to invest less of our money and over shorter periods of time. So I think these findings show that the financial and investment journeys might look a little bit different for women and could be challenging in some ways, given these behavioral traits and characteristics. What makes investing and financial habits more challenging for women? And these are some of the main things that I wanted to talk about today. Firstly, I think that women are risk aware and not risk averse. Mm-hmm. And that's a really important distinction because a lot of conventional wisdom is that men are risk takers and that women are not. But I think the truth is a lot more nuanced than that. I think that's a very simplistic way to look at things. There's a lot of research has been done which shows that it's actually financial knowledge that makes the largest impact on investment behavior. And it's not surprising that there is a disparity in the amount of financial knowledge, as well as there's still a gender pay gap that exists, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And I think that is what makes women less willing to take risk when it comes to investing, and hence why it's so important for financial literacy efforts such as these ones. And the second, as women, we all wear multiple hats in life, and we have so many obligations. Where we have partners, we have children, we have to care for our parents, our family. And family commitments have been very commonly cited as an obstacle actually to start your investment journey. And third is, women are sometimes deterred from starting early. There is and it's a misconception, right, that you need a lot of money to get started, that you have to save up a huge nest egg before you can even take that first step. And I don't think that's true. And there's a lot more options today than say 5-10 years ago, right, where you can actually start with small amounts of money and start your investing journey early. So because of this, women often don't start until later in life investing compared to men. And even though 1 in 2 agree that there are actually benefits of investing early. So maybe I'll turn it to Jasmine now, since I've talked a lot. What are some of the challenges that maybe you've faced in your investment journey?
Interesting question, because honestly, it wasn't something I was thinking about going through school or coming out and starting to work. I think the first few conversations about investing would be from friends who are doing say an insurance, personal investing, and that was the first perception of what investment would look like. And even then there was huge monthly payouts, and when you first started work, it's not something that I was comfortable doing, and at the same time it's tied to something else, which was insurance, and it was made very complicated. So then it was so overwhelming that it was just kind of parked aside. And then when I first started my business, a lot of the money went into the business. So then I was thinking I should keep the rest of my money for like rainy days and don't touch it, because investment was always like risky. I have learned that it's not risky, it's just that I don't have enough information on how I should be compartmentalizing the money and how I use it, and which part of it I can actually, or how much of it I can actually think of investing. I think on top of that also, there are a lot, I wouldn't say there's not enough information out there about investing or financial literacy. In fact, I feel like there is a lot, and it's almost like, who do I listen to? Who do I trust? How do I even get the information I need? And that was honestly the biggest struggle. Like as I got older and more into my business, you know how when you start a business, everyone just honestly assume I'm very good at, like, I know what to do with my money. And then no one talks to you after a while because they just assume that, like, oh, you must have gotten it all sorted out. And I feel like that's also true when you have worked for a while and then you're kind of like left alone by these investment people. It's either you are in that starting pool of just started work, or then the next step is, I guess, priority banking or private banking, and it's kind of like that big gap. And then that's where I guess women just find comfortable ways of investing, and that was me also. So any kind of fixed deposit that gives me like a okay rate that I know I can get my money out in 6 months, take it, just put it in there. Those were really big deterrent, and that's why I really only started after meeting the Endowus team. And what changed my mind on investment was that first presentation where you spoke about goal-based investing, like how you can think about your future, your child's future, your family's future, and then also the buckets that we can think about short-term, long-term. And that made so much sense as a woman, because I feel like as women, we don't just think about our own money, we think about, the bigger picture. And I love how Endowus has made the information, like financial information, so palatable to women as well. And yeah, that helped me get started only very recently. So no shame, man. If you're not investing yet, no shame. Like I sat in a room of women that's like about this, like 30s, and we're like, have you started investing? Like nobody dared to say a thing until it was put out there, and then we were all like, yeah, seriously, I haven't started yet. So yes, that's why we're here doing this too. So if you have any questions today, like anything that you are,
please.
Yes, just shout out, because they're the best people, and
Thank
I
you.
haven't met anyone so willing to share information without that that catch, So I'll just leave it to you guys to explain a little bit more. I should stop talking. Okay.
I mean, a lot of my sister, my friends, my colleagues. I mean, they're colleagues of my past jobs, I guess, but very successful women in terms of their career. But when it came to investing, a lot of them would still defer some of these investment decisions to their husbands, to the partners. But these were like lawyers, doctors, like professionals.
Like the money thing's always like, I guess the husband would know better, but it's your money, man. So,
it is.
Yeah, and like buying a house, things like that. Like educating ourselves as women. You don't have to know everything, but I think like the basics is important.
I think it's very empowering to be able to, with information, to be able to make your own money decisions and have control of that. I mean, some people choose to make these decisions with their partners, and that's a great way to do it. But I don't think you should remove yourself from that conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Life in Singapore has gotten more expensive. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed in the last kind of year or two, right? And inflation really hits home closer than you think. I mean, for example, look at bubble tea. I don't know, maybe Jasmine's a little too healthy for bubble tea.
I drink bubble tea, okay? Just the Sanchan one, the healthier one.
But it's
quite expensive now.
So Chicha, their bubble tea
this
prices.
one. I like this one. Has it
it's
gone
one
up?
of my favorites. It's actually
No
gone up
way.
almost 20% in the last 2 years. And I mean, bubble tea is a luxury item, but this applies to a lot of the essentials in life too. 20%, 2 years.
2 years.
And if any of you have
Audacity.
mortgages now, I mean, you would have seen your mortgage payments really balloon, right, in the last 2 years as well. And so, it really makes it even more important to think about investing. Because, so I mean, if your money is left in a savings account, and in today's markets, I mean, the deposit rates are much higher than they were 2 years ago. But is it enough to cover inflation? If you look at, I know this is a little bit small, but if you look at the chart on the right, if you start out with $100 today and an inflation rate of 1%, that $100 is only worth $74 in 30 years. If your inflation rate is 3%, it's worth about $40 in 30 years. So it is, that 2% difference each year, it really eats into your purchasing power. And as women, we're going to live longer than our partners. We have a longer life expectancy. So it means that we have a longer, retirement to think about, which means we actually need to save more money than our spouses when it comes to retirement. And unfortunately, women actually have a lower CPF balance compared to men, for different reasons, like gender pay gap. Perhaps you take a break from work to care for your children or your parents. There are a lot of reasons why women take time off work as well. So, but it just really, drives home the message that we have to plan for our retirement given some of these factors. It is so crucial for us to take that first step and not just depend on our spouses, for example, financial planning. And if you see this statistic, in Singapore, 82% of women actually defer these long-term financial planning decisions to their spouses, but the women actually take charge of the short-term financial decisions, like the day-to-day, like your household expenses. That women are very comfortable taking charge. It's just these long-term, larger financial decisions, investments that we tend to defer. Yeah, and investing doesn't need to be complicated.
It doesn't need to be.
And I think there are some, simple steps that, everybody can start today. Yeah.
I feel like with the marriage thing is also interesting because a lot of men feel a lot of pressure sometimes, thinking that they're the only one having to plan for the family's long term. And having a woman who understands a little bit more and have a conversation is also crucial because these are things that I feel like couples need to talk about a little bit more, like where do you see our financials and like in the long term. And it's really a conversation that it can be a fruitful conversation if both sides has enough information, like we're empowering ourselves enough to then have a conversation that's meaningful and something that we don't have to be afraid of as well. And it really takes the pressure off the men sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think money is very commonly cited as like the number one sort of source of conflict in a relationship.
It's like, it's too late to talk about it, or like, no, we're so old already, so talk about it early. I think that's something that couples need to think about too. We know that investing is important and women need more information when it comes to investing. What are some of the basics? Like not the things we learn in school, not like finance 101, because that's how to do business. And sometimes even that is not really 101. What are the true 101s for how to manage personal finances?
I mean, we definitely don't talk about personal finances in school. And I actually think it's such a life skill, right? Something that we don't learn about enough.
You should teach in school.
To
why is it not taught in school?
I mean, for me personally, I really try to keep it simple, right? I mean, I have so much going on already with work, with my baby. So personal finances, I try to stick to this 50-30-20 rule. So 50% of my money I spend on like really essentials, like things like my mortgage payment, my utilities bills, my telco bills, things like that. 30% is on more my wants, right? So not things that I could probably do without, but make my life a little better, like bar class, like taking a grab, like bubble tea, or like dinners out, right? And then the remaining 20% is for savings and for investments. And for investments, what I do for my own account is that I automate this every month. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to worry each month, oh, is this a good time to invest or not, and how much should I invest? So I automate all this on the Endowus platform. So I set up a monthly recurring investment, and that gets deducted from my bank account every month. Also, I don't see that money, so I can't even spend it, which is
It's a great way.
It's a good
I love
way
the automation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just to make life easier. And I know that, I am dollar cost averaging into the market every month, whether the market goes up, whether it goes down.
We'll have to talk more about that later, like the dollar cost averaging.
Just like slowly building up, my investment pool. Yeah.
Okay. How about CPF? Like, tell us a little bit more about. I know Endowus is one of the spaces that we can actually use and invest our CPF. Could you tell us a little bit more about?
Yeah, I mean, Endowus is actually the first digital advisor where you can invest your CPF money. So as part of your CPF, every month, your employer pays 20% of your salary into your CPF, and you pay 17%. It's actually a really, really large amount that goes into your CPF, right? So there is the CPF OA, there is the ordinary account, the special account, and the MediSave account. So in your ordinary account, you can use it for housing. You can also use it for investing. So, I mean, there are your OA, if you just leave it there, that will give you 2.5% currently. That's guaranteed by the government, which is pretty decent, to be honest. But your CPF money is super long-term money, right? You can't touch it for the next, at least 25, kind of 35 years. So we think that, maybe you can take a little bit more risk in your CPF money and get market type returns. I mean, we're not saying, you should take crypto type of risk in your CPF account, but the markets have returned high single digits over the last decades. And I think that's very, very decent, right? You don't have to take, you don't have to take a lot of risk.
A lot of risk for a bonus.
But you do have to be comfortable that, that portfolio is going to go up and down over time, versus if you just left in your CPF and it would just steadily gain 2.5% a year.
When I first heard about Endowus, I think they were still trying to get the license to get CPF invested, and then when that got approved, I was like, yeah, it's money that's already there that I can't see until I'm 55, basically, and it's 2.5% versus taking a little bit more risk for a little bit of that. So I thought this was something that we could, talk about a little bit more, but not too much. Yeah.
So I mean, CPF is automatically deducted from your salary, so you don't even. It's actually 37% in total. I mean, there's a cap to it, but your employer plus the employee contribution adds up to 37%. This goes down when you get a little bit older, but at this age, everyone here is contributing 37%.
Yeah, and that's quite significant, and it's money that we could think about. Tell me more about goal-based investment. I think we spoke a little bit about that earlier. How would you define goal-based investment? What does that look like?
Goal-based investment is basically also how we designed the Endowus platform, because we think it's such an important concept, right? Because at the end of the day, why you're investing is because you have certain goals in life that you want to reach, whether it is to retire a certain way, to buy a house, to provide for your children's education, and that should really form the center of your investment portfolio, right? Because it doesn't matter in 30 years whether you beat the market or not. It only matters whether you can hit these investment goals. And so when you can define what these goals are, it makes it a lot easier for you to think about, what type of investments you should be in, how long your investment horizon is, and what kind of risk you should be taking. I also think it's a lot less overwhelming than thinking what you should invest in general, right? But now by bucketing these different goals and by bucketing your money, you have a better sense of what you should look at. So for example, if you know that you want to buy a house in the next
5 years.
5 years, right? 5 years. So you can't take a lot of risk on that money. You know that you need a certain amount at the end of 5 years. So maybe you invest in something a little bit more conservative. You invest in some money market funds, some fixed income bond products, right? You wouldn't want to invest in a crypto or even like 100% equity, right? And because during the financial crisis, for example, a global equity portfolio went down 40% that year, and you don't want your portfolio to go down 40% just the year before you actually need to use it. So by having these, more defined goals in mind, you really can think about what's the right sort of allocation and what's the right product to put your money in.
Yeah, I think that part of it really helped me in thinking about when I need the money, and based on when I expect myself to need money, how then can I align the risk that I can take with which bucket of money. So it's really thinking kind of like backwards. Like if in 5 years I need money to put more into the business, for example, then I would not touch that money into like a too risky. But if I have that 10% that I know I can park away, then that one I can kind of play with to see if that would give me a bit more return. So that has, and that was, as the app is really quite powerful. You can really literally go like super risky, this is the portfolio. Like not so risky, this is the portfolio. And then you kind of go back to how much money you go into this one, how much money you go into this one. It's really like intuitive, and that's why I love the product so much. It's just, I don't have to think, and the only thing I need to think about is how much money and work backwards from there. Yeah, and there's the automation thing that honestly just changes lives. You just click a button every month, it just automatically deducts, and you don't need to think about even, how to invest, which is what I feel like intimidates us quite a bit, and it's just like I have no time to think about this. And
I think often we're our worst enemies when it comes to investing. I mean, humans are very emotional,
and must definitely be up,
and there's so much just noise in the market. There's always something happening, whether it's geopolitical or some other, or oil prices.
There's always not the right time.
It's always hard to know whether it's the right time.
Yeah. You mentioned something the last time about not trying to time the market. I don't know if we have something similar today to show. Like even the worst investor, over time compounding might even...
That's actually one of my favorite charts.
Yeah. With me, I'm always thinking I don't want to go into it until I know I can make money. I don't want to put my money into anything if there's a risk attached to it. But then with the study, even the worst investor, even if you were to invest at the worst possible time, like every downturn you put money in, right? Over time, you're still up, right? Yeah. So it really just tells us, like sometimes we think we're so, sometimes I think I'm so clever. I'm like, I must time the market, I must make sure I go in at the right time, go in at a low, sell at a high. And honestly, I think that's just, I feel like it's a little bit egoistical to think about the fact that we can actually time the market so well and like put the stress on myself. So just let the compounding effect take place, right?
I mean, I think a lot of us start our investment journey trying to stock pick, right? We think that we're familiar with a certain product or company, and markets are very humbling, and for a lot of us, it's not our full-time job to be looking at the markets day in, day out. We have our own job, things that we are good at. We have, life gets in the way, and so it's perfectly fine to outsource some of these decisions to a professional or to take a more sort of passive, long-term approach to investing.
I completely agree with that. I think as an entrepreneur, like running the business, having a kid, one of the best decisions I've made for Lab was to diversify. Like we were just doing yoga for the longest time. And then after a while, I was like, in school last time they taught me diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So we have like bar. And then after adding bar, now we have reformer. And it's really the best decision. And it's not magical, it's really just diversifying. So you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, because if one goes down and then other things can kind of like support. Like honestly now, reformer is supporting the whole thing because like reformer is all that rave, right? But that really changed my mind about investing. Like, why all my money in fixed D? Like, why am I not thinking about ways to, or even like, why am I just depending on my salary to make money? Like, what are the other ways I can potentially like think about my income stream? What if one day the business is no more than it? Do I have something else to support my like day to day even, you know. So that diversification was, it can be applied across everything, including life, except for husbands and partners. The one I guess you can't diversify. You just stick to one.
We have an investment team. There's 12 people. It's led by our CIO, Sam, who used to run Morgan Stanley Asset Management. So that team, they look at the asset allocation. They look at all the fund managers out there. They do due diligence on them. They decide, okay, what are the best funds that we like? Then we put them in portfolios for different risk buckets. So for example, if you're very conservative, you could have a 100% bond portfolio, and we've picked the different funds and the allocations that make that up. If you're a balanced investor, for example, you want 60% equities, 40% bonds, we'll have built that portfolio, and then all the way to like the riskiest. And we also have portfolios, say if you want a passive income, so every month you get a certain amount from your portfolio. Right now it's about maybe 5% per annum.
Oh, there's something like that?
Yeah, there is. We have income portfolios.
Okay. We'll look into that.
We have ESG focused portfolios. We have cash management as well. So for very short term, you just want to park your money for a couple of months, but you want daily liquidity. You want to be able to pull it out at any time. So we have those options too.
Thank you, Sin Ting.
No,
Thank
not
you
at
for
all.
empowering us with valuable information that we can take with us.
And if any questions like after the session that you just want to ask me, you can email me, WhatsApp me, anything really.
We're very grateful. I'm very grateful for the support that Endowus has given us.